and thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Yes.
Can we get out of this contract, or do we have a contract with them, or?
I will be honest with you, I think CompuClaim is hoping,
that we-
because it's not worth their hours
Yeah.
either.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I think that's why they contacted us.
Fair enough.
Okay, moving on to number 10, old business, determining the need for additional kindergarten class at Center School, which was discussed at our June meeting and tabled for pending further information. So,
Share copy. Sorry, I'm just gonna.
that's, sorry, not giving you a chance to
Okay.
even finish the one before.
I see the mail envelope, which means it's the end of the file, so that's
Okay.
good. All right, so you have the updated numbers in front of you, and there's a +4 on there because we know there are 4 students coming into first grade. There are new students that we know of coming into kindergarten. We know 1 more is coming into second grade. That's all we know at this point. What we don't know at this point is who's leaving, unless they've come to the office and told us. Students that move out, they don't notify the school district until the new school district then contacts Willington and says, so-and-so is enrolling in Canton or another town. So I don't know how many are leaving. What I will tell you is, the +5 is because they showed up in the office and they're registering their kids. We know they're coming.
The okay.
+4 and +1.
Yeah.
That does not impact kindergarten. So, there's 37 still in there. We know they're still there. They're 18 and 19, and so the question really is, did you want to add a 3rd section? You had asked about Jackie going back to the Board of Finance to ask for money, and when we looked at the budget, when we had planned for the budget, there was some special education money that was allocated out that, for an outplace that is currently not going to be used. So Donna said you could use that money and transfer that money in. If you hired someone, the cost would, the money could be in the budget if you chose to add the 3rd section without adding or going to the Board of Finance to request money. So Jackie did not go to the Board of Finance and say, hey, we have these numbers, can we increase? So it's up to you if you wanna add that 3rd section or not.
Well, I have a question. So, those 2 classes, 18 and 19, it's not just one single teacher in the class, there are at least couple paraprofessionals in each class?
2 teachers.
No.
So 2 teachers in each class?
No.
One teacher for
One.
18 and 1 teacher for 19.
No
No
paraprofessionals
paraprofessionals, and that's what Jackie pulled together, or we pulled together for you, is those options last time, for what you could do for option 1, option 1A, 1B, 2, 3. They include adding a kindergarten teacher, they include adding a paraprofessional, adjusting other classes, and you basically said, we just want to address the kindergarten. That's up to you, obviously.
And we would have the 59,000, would that be covered under that money? Okay.
And that's why you said earlier that the budget's tight, because you were including this as an option, okay?
Correct.
Well, I would say, we really, as you mentioned, you don't know how many people moved out, if any moved out.
Out of kindergarten, it won't impact because those are verified. It's the only group that we can verify because they all came to register. Everyone else, 1st through 4th, and actually 1st through 8th grade, if we don't usually get that information until, August 29th, when the student registers in a different town and that school calls Hall School or Center School and says, we would like their records. But the kindergarten numbers, and I think I can drive Patty nuts at Center because I call her every day and say, any new kindergarten students, has anyone left? We were at 38, one of those students is going to a magnet school, that's what brought us to 37.
So we have 1 less student than since our last meeting.
It's the same since last meeting that was done prior to that.
Okay.
I'm also looking at 1st grade with 40 students, more than the 37.
This is where you get the +4 came in 1 class. This happened last year too, that 3rd grade group, for whatever reason last year, everybody moved into third grade.
Well, my concern, I would be very careful about hiring one more person, putting one more position. We have money this year, how about next year? I don't know. I would just be very, very careful. I understand if we would have like 24 people, 22 people in class, but our policies, we're still within our policies, so still less than 22, even corrected policy, not even 30. Let's assume it's approved 22. I would be very careful about taking another teacher, because the overall trend is that the amount of kids go down, so we can then fire the person, or like we're gonna keep the person.
Sure we can. We wouldn't fire them, but based upon our numbers, if you don't have a position for them, based upon the number of of students, you have a time frame and a procedure in place to let that person go.
Like what's the time frame?
It's within the contract, that the teacher's contract, so, you know, if there's a reduction in force based upon the number of students, they go out and they find another job, and within a certain time frame, if the numbers go back up and that job opens back up, that person has a right to that position.
Okay.
Other questions, Tracy?
Or just to comment on that, you know, last year when there were 36 students, we had 3 teachers and smaller class sizes and I remember conversations during budget processes a few years ago with parents who were, when we had an issue between having a paraprofessional or not having a paraprofessional, and the public expressing that going into the classrooms and volunteering, seeing how hard it was for the teachers to meet the needs of all of those 18 kids by themselves. And the difference between, you know, 12, 13 kids and 18 kids when you're talking about kindergartners, some of which have never come to public school before, is huge. As one individual with kids having to tie their shoes and get their snow pants on and figure out how to get to lunch and how to write their letters and numbers and do, you know, all the things that we expect them to do. So just to keep that, you know, in the backs of our heads too. It's not just about the dollars that it's going to cost, it's about what's going to be best for the individual kids who are going to be in the classrooms, and that those teachers who are trying to meet the curriculum and the needs of those kids. And I think if we have the money and it's not being used in another place, this might be the best option for our district to use that money if there's no other pressing reasons.
Yeah, I've always agreed that at the kindergarten, first grade, you should keep classes as small as possible. And when you get up around 18, 19, 20, it is kind of excessive when you stop and think about it. And we have had smaller classes in the past few years, but even a para sometimes helps, but you still have large classes. It's all right. I like small classes, but in this case, we're getting down to, what do we have, a couple of years ago, 11, 12, and 13.
This past group that's in going into first grade here,
Yeah.
36 was the group that was in 3,
Yeah, I see.
12, 12, 12, and they were,
Yeah.
that worked for kindergarten, and then we bumped them up
Yeah.
into the 18. Of course, now
When
we
you
just have
look-
4 more.
When you look at these numbers, really, they mean something, but they don't, because lots of times youngsters at that age are probably have a cold or something like that. So your class size may not be 10, it may be 8, you know.
Well, that happens in higher grades too, when we have those epidemics, you have
Yeah, it's the same.
70
it's the
kids
same-
out in one day.
Same everywhere. But, thing is, if we hire a third kindergarten teacher this year, as already been pointed out, then we're almost obligated to continue, next year as well, and the budget has been very, very tight, you know. And surprised that you're able to find money in there. You didn't find the total $7,000.
Pretty
Okay.
close to
We're
that,
not
yes.
How much
It's-
you got?
An outplacement is between transportation and tuition is
Transportation, yeah.
a significant amount of money.
Mhm.
So let's take the worst case scenario where we would have to eliminate a position
Next
the
year.
following year. Don't you have to make a decision by April? What's the contract here in town?
Sure, yeah, and you just follow the process. And honestly, I mean, this is a pretty competitive, if you're looking for a job K-6, it is extremely competitive. If you open this up K-6, you could get 150 applicants in 2 weeks. Not all positions are like that, you know. So, you know, you're gonna find a good candidate and they'll be happy to have a job for a year. And they know they may have to find another job someplace else. The people that we hired last year, you know, they knew they were bottom of the totem pole based upon seniority and experience and crossing their fingers, do I just have a job? Just tell me I have a job. And they do. It happened that we had a retirement. If we did not have a retirement at center school this year, there would have been one person that did not have a job, based upon the numbers you have here.
Usually that certification is for K-6.
It's K-6, yes.
K-6, so when they come in as a kindergarten, even if that position is eliminated through attrition, there's probably another position in this,
They might wind up teaching
System
second grade
or
next
the-
year instead of kindergarten.
yeah. Because it's not fair to bring someone in for a year and then release them, you know?
But we do have a right to sign just 1-year contract with them, and
It's
then
not-
if we need, we can renew it.
It's not a 1-year contract, but it's written in the contract that if we hire them for a year at a time, so I guess it is kind of a 1-year
Right,
contract, but.
we're up for, if every teacher's up for renewal every
Right.
year.
Right, but if we
Whether
don't have
we
enough
are-
kids for them, they
Yeah.
don't come back the following year. We just have to follow our procedure for notification to them.
Yeah. So, and there, could you please, I would ask you to consider, just to look at option 3, if we hire 2 paraprofessionals. So, these numbers for the paraprofessionals is, as far as I know, we do pay a lot to our paraprofessionals, average $18 an hour, while talent pay is average $11 an hour. So maybe we can consider, instead of hiring another teacher, one person, maybe we should hire 2 paraprofessionals and reduce not 63,000, but make it close to hiring one teacher, 59,000. That way, those 2 classrooms will have, for the same money, we'll have 2 people helping. That's
So
my thinking.
the numbers for option 3 though, for 2 paraprofessionals is more expensive
It's
than
63,000, that's what I'm saying, but,
compared to 59.
yeah,
Okay.
but that's what I'm
I
saying.
just wanted to clarify that that's what you were proposing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not even proposing, I'm just kind of discussing and thinking
Okay.
aloud. So if we reduce the salary, suggested salary for the new paraprofessionals,
Can't, it's contractual.
so we cannot hire new paraprofessionals with it, suggest them to pay less?
So when you were in the contract negotiations for
Yes.
that group and they all have their salary scale, if somebody comes in at a certain amount, you have to put them on the salary scale where they fall with their number of experiences. Even if I don't know, I will tell you, I don't know if that 22,000, it's probably the low end of that scale, the entry point. So that's 22,000 and that's just salary, the benefits is the 9,000 that's in there. So that's where the 31 comes from, but it's contractual. So
Can we find out these numbers? And they find out if we can have better 2 paraprofessionals for the amount of money the same or less than hiring one teacher. I just think it will be more efficient to have 2 people to help instead of 1 class.
Well,
That's
one
my
is not
thinking.
gonna do much good,
But
just sharing one.
That's-
person.
no, that's
what's
what
your,
I'm saying.
what's your
I'm saying
opinion
2
about
paraprofessionals.
2 paraprofessionals versus 1 teacher? What's your
I
opinion?
think a teacher will be more effective.
Mhm.
You have
Yes, I
smaller
agree.
classes,
Yeah.
so you have full instructions on all 3 groups of kids. I mean, I've seen kindergartens that come in now, and I mean, they act like 3-year-olds.
It's the reason we changed our preschool program.
It's really,
It's connected to the.
I
It's
give
all
all
the
those
same.
kindergarten teachers a lot of credit I can never, I don't think I can.
This one's smiling in the crowd
Yeah,
there.
And just
Tracy.
another point of, to mention, I think, is that we just approved the hiring of a brand new principal to our building. And, it's July. We could be having the same conversation in 3 weeks because now enrollment has gone up. And now we'll be in August and she's under pressure to begin school with a new position and now has to hire a teacher in 3 weeks before school starts, or 2 weeks before, because the school starts on, August. I don't know what the first day for teachers is, but it's, I don't know, I think we have to make a decision.
You have to create the space too. That'll probably be an issue, to create some space for a new classroom.
No, I think we had room, the classroom's already
But I
there.
mean, moving things
Oh,
around.
and you have
and-
the
yeah.
assign and who gets
Actually,
it.
yeah.
It's not like we're creating a new classroom, it's
No,
the
we have
reassignment.
to, got it.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we approve the addition of 1 kindergarten classroom to create 3 kindergarten classrooms for the 2018-19 school year, or leave that off.
No, that's right.
Okay.
It's not a different school year than that, you got that one right, okay. Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
Okay, Tracy seconded. Additional conversation, questions? Come on, Herb.
I don't know, I'm torn, with this, financially, I think we're kind of strapped in this. I know that we'll come up with some money, but nevertheless, we didn't address this really when the budget was around. We didn't put it in. Now at kind of at the last minute, it's being shoved in there I mean, the classes, the way I see them are not that well, as a teacher couldn't handle it, but an experienced teacher anyway. I don't know.
I also would like to know what the amount of money we did find. Do you have a number?
I
Terms
don't
of-
have the exact number. All I
Because-
know is it was an outplacement tuition and it would fully cover the amount.
The 59,600.
Yeah, well, I would suggest, because we may have other issues coming out, so it's good to know what that amount, which is extra we have, because we already have some issues now, so maybe we could use it there. So is there a way to find out how much?
Not tonight, Donna.
Yeah, I understand, so I personally, do not feel comfortable voting without that number.
The thing is that we have to decide tonight, don't we, basically, to give our superintendent time to locate a candidate, although he said there's
They're out there.
a great number out there.
You're still gonna have to be speedy,
Yeah.
Correct.
fair enough. Okay, no further conversation. Let's move to a vote. Those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Those abstaining signify by raising your hand, because I can't remember what the other one is. 2 abstentions, okay. So the motion carries.
But we will know that number next meeting, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, I rely on Donna for that.
Yeah.
At this point, for her to say, there's money if that position's there.
Well, if there is money, I think the board needs to know, because we had such a work with the budget, like every penny, we were fighting for every thousand. I know we took money off from, children's field trip, they did not get t-shirts this year, I know kids were really upset because we took those 3,000 out from them and they, so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was, I
Yeah.
heard some people
Yeah.
were really upset because of that, children. So I would just be more careful with money, 'cause-
Well,
I think that we voted, we're gonna move forward, rather than comment on this when we get to
Just
the.
wanna point out on the vote, I mean, the vote within the majority, no one objected to it, but there were 2 abstentions.
And,
The
and
abstention basically is not opposed completely, and is kind of voting with
yes,
the majority.
right, and then, so there were two
But we still
abstentions, so you got
want
that.
more information, really.
Mhm. Yep.
Sean, may I say,
A good candidate.
it's not about kindergarten.
Can you
It's
hold it for,
about
can you hold it for
first
board
grade.
comment? Can you hold it
Okay.
for board comment?
I'll
Okay.
save it for-
We have
I'll save it
people
for
who may wanna
comments.
comment, present to speak,
Okay.
you've been in the audience long enough, and I appreciate that for those of you who are, troopers to make it till after 9 o'clock. But you will have an opportunity in board
Thank you.
comment. So, again, we have an opportunity at the end of meetings for anybody present to comment, and, we welcome your participation. Again, keep your comments to 5 minutes, stand up and give us your name and address for the minutes.
I just want to thank you for electing me to the board, and I hope I live up to your expectations. I did want to point out, I think there are a lot of educators on the board, at least in my, knowledge of the members on the board. I'm not an educator. I was a TA at the University of Missouri in the J School. That doesn't really count. I realize that. But I do think that I have decades of experience in journalism, and there's a lot of research and learning and rigor there that I think I could bring to bear on the decision making of the board. And I hope I serve you well.
Not us, come.
Yeah, Matthew Clark, 42 Burt Latham Road. I think that the board, I don't know the proper process for this, but I don't think the will of the people was done tonight. We have a majority that voted for the person from their party rather than the person that was wanted by the Sentinels and put forward by the Republicans. So I think that in order to avoid that kind of thing in the future, maybe what we should do is have an alternate. The next highest vote getter is the alternate. So the people of Willington, their voice is actually heard and has some legitimacy rather than just the majority in the board getting another one of their party in. Thank you.
Peter Hilton, 97 Trask Road. I would echo those sentiments. It's truly disappointing to see a group that professes to value diversity to limit it so much. And I regret very much that the people of Willington were shut out tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Dillon, I retract my earlier statement about the one word, and I now open the floor if you would like to have up to 5 minutes to say something.
No, I won't that time.
Okay. Behind you.
Mike Choi, teacher at Home Memorial School. Thank you, Phil, for running such a good first meeting, despite it being a little bit longer. Great discussion on the board. It's always great to hear that everybody is voicing their opinions and that everybody's being listened to. Thanks everybody for coming out. From the teacher perspective, it's good to hear that you guys kind of have our backs, which is good because that's what we need to feel when we're in the classrooms. While I was sitting here, I did look up a state statute for you, and it does say that the first selectman is the ex officio member of all boards. It's statute 712A from chapter 91 in the CGA, Connecticut General.
That's a town agencies.
Maybe.
We're
Connecticut General
not
Assembly.
a town agency.
Okay, well, there's a place to start.
Okay.
I looked up something.
Thank you for starting the research process.
The Blue Book was
Fair
different.
enough.
The Blue Book is a little different.
Yes.
It's worded a little bit
We'll do
different.
a research.
We will do additional research following on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
Mr. Dillon.
in line with what he just said, I've been,
For the record, for the
oh, yeah, I'm
minute
sorry.
taker. Sorry.
Yeah, as many of you know, I've been on boards of education for a long time, and I was a teacher I'm sorry, a teacher for many years. And the times that I've been on boards, both this one and Region 19, it was explained to us in our orientation for both that, as Herb said, the chief executive officer of the town, okay, whatever that might be, is an ex officio member. However, the town side and the Board of Education have fiduciary separate responsibilities, and therefore what that does is to make, in a sense, let's say in this case, the first select person is ex officio, but is not a voting member.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Is more of in an advisory capacity to the Board of Education rather than a voting member. So Herb is absolutely correct in what he said, and I think we had a similar, if I'm not mistaken, Herb, back in, you and I were on Region 19 together, we had a similar question that came up before the board.
Yeah, that's what it says, without vote.
Without vote, yeah. So that
Thank you.
clarifies,
That's a
you're
useful
welcome, you're welcome.
Last chance. Last person hasn't said anything. No? Okay, maybe next month. We're good. Okay, moving on to board comments. So we always like to give the board a chance to respond and have a public comment. I think do you want to start or you want to go
I
last?
can start, yes. Well, I am really disappointed today, tell you the truth. I did expect more respect towards the voters to this town. We still have that information from the previous election and we fully ignored the amount of people who voted for Joy Roner when she was. So the main thing, we don't follow the tradition, then let's just break the tradition, let's just do whatever we want. So I'm disappointed. I am really disappointed. So if there is anybody conservatively thinking or thinks like us, please show up. We could use your presence now, but no offendings to anybody. I apologize if I hurt anybody, including you, Mr. Jalan. I did not mean to hurt you. I truly respect you. Don't agree with your standing though, but